President Cyril Ramaphosa has ignited a firestorm by signing a proclamation that allows bigger political party donations with less transparency. President Cyril Ramaphosa has once again thrust himself into the center of South Africa's political storm after signing a new proclamation that loosens transparency rules around political party funding and allows larger donations to flow with fewer questions asked. It's a move that has ignited anger across opposition benches, civil society organizations, and ordinary citizens who fear this decision takes South Africa backward in the fight against corruption. Ramaphosa, who once campaigned on a ticket of integrity, accountability, and renewal, now faces sharp criticism for what many see as opening the floodgates for influence peddling and money-driven politics at the expense of democracy. The proclamation amends aspects of the Political Party Funding Act, which was originally hailed as a historic step toward cleaning up the opaque world of political donations. That law required parties to disclose donations above R100,000 and capped donations at R15 million from a single donor per year. Now, under Ramaphosa's signature, the threshold for disclosure has been pushed higher, and the limits on donations have been relaxed, effectively granting wealthy individuals and corporations greater leverage in shaping the country's political future without the same level of public scrutiny. Supporters of the change argue that political parties require vast resources to operate, especially in a hyper-competitive environment where constant campaigning, outreach, and media operations drain party coffers. They claim that the previous thresholds made it nearly impossible for parties to raise sufficient funds and that donors often avoided contributing altogether to sidestep the burden of disclosure. But critics counter that this is not about sustainability, it's about secrecy. They believe the reforms were engineered to shield ruling party finances from public accountability at a time when trust in political institutions is already at a historic low. What makes the proclamation even more controversial is its timing. South Africa is approaching a critical period in its democratic journey, where coalition politics are reshaping the political map, and smaller parties are gaining momentum against the once dominant African National Congress. By allowing larger undisclosed donations, smaller parties argue they will be drowned out by the financial firepower of the ruling elite, entrenching inequality not just in the economy but in politics itself. Analysts warn that the decision risks turning elections into an auction where the highest bidder secures influence over policy direction. Civil society watchdogs have sounded alarms, noting that South Africa fought tooth and nail to secure greater transparency after decades of state capture scandals revealed how private interests hollowed out state institutions. The Zondo Commission made it abundantly clear that money quietly funneled into political networks often leads to contracts being skewed, tenders manipulated, and ordinary citizens left paying the price. Many South Africans are asking how a president who positioned himself as the champion of reform could endorse a proclamation that weakens the very tools designed to prevent a repeat of those dark years. In the streets, the frustration is palpable. Activists and opposition leaders have called this a betrayal, accusing Ramaphosa of prioritizing the survival of his party over the survival of the country's democracy. They point out that just when people were demanding more transparency, stronger ethics in public office, and tougher action on corruption, government has delivered the opposite. This creates a sense of déjà vu, as if lessons from state capture have been discarded in favor of short-term political gains. Opposition parties such as the Democratic Alliance and Action SA have vowed to challenge the proclamation in court, warning that the changes will undermine free and fair elections. Smaller parties that rely heavily on grassroots fundraising fear being squeezed out altogether, while those with access to wealthy benefactors will dominate the political conversation. Even within the ANC, some members quietly whisper concerns about how the decision will be perceived by ordinary voters who already feel alienated by rising inequality, unemployment, and load shedding. If the perception solidifies that politics is now openly for sale, it could erode voter turnout and breed deeper cynicism about the very idea of democracy. Yet Ramaphosa's allies insist this is a pragmatic step. They argue that without steady financial flows, the political system will collapse under its own weight, leaving parties vulnerable to bankruptcy and unable to compete. But this argument rings hollow to many South Africans who recall that transparency and accountability were the very foundation on which Ramaphosa's New Dawn promised to rebuild the nation. Instead of revitalizing democracy, critics argue, he has taken a page from the old playbook of secrecy and shadow deals. The true danger lies not only in the money itself but in the invisibility of influence. When voters cannot trace who is bankrolling a party, they cannot assess whether a policy, a procurement deal, or a sudden legislative shift is motivated by the public interest or by the quiet demands of a donor sitting in the background. And in a nation still scarred by the Gupta's capture of the state, such opacity reopens wounds many hoped had begun to heal. This proclamation is more than just a technical adjustment, it's a symbolic moment. It tells South Africans that even after commissions, inquiries, and endless promises, the political establishment remains unwilling to fully embrace transparency. It also signals to the global community that South Africa, once praised for its progressive steps toward open democracy, is retreating into a more secretive posture, potentially discouraging investment from those who value accountability. As the country braces for the next election cycle, the political temperature is sure to rise. Civil society groups are mobilizing, legal challenges are looming, and citizens are beginning to ask sharper questions about whether this presidency has truly lived up to its pledges. For Ramaphosa, this may become a defining battle, not only about campaign finance laws but about his legacy as a leader who either defended democracy or allowed it to be hollowed out in plain sight. What happens next will shape not only the balance of power in parliament but the very trust that citizens place in their leaders. If democracy is to mean more than ballots cast every 5 years, then transparency and accountability cannot be treated as inconveniences. They are the lifeblood of public trust. By weakening them, Ramaphosa risks poisoning the well of democracy itself. And South Africans, who have fought so long and hard for freedom and fairness, will not soon forget. Make sure you subscribe right now because we will continue exposing the truth, unpacking these critical issues, and holding power to account. Your voice matters, your attention matters, and your engagement ensures these stories don't disappear under the weight of political spin. Stay locked in, we will bring you the updates, the battles in court, the voices on the ground, and the consequences this decision will unleash. South Africa's future is at stake, and we must watch every move.